something new, finding my way through.
Hey, Candid Land, happy Sunday to you, and welcome to this edition of Candid Conversations with Miss Krystal podcast. Hope you had a wonderful Sunday, and I am still riding high off of an amazing church service. My church, big shout outs to St. Stephen Church, celebrated 99 years. It was his 99th church anniversary, so we had such a wonderful time on today. So, Candyman, well, first off, excuse me if you hear the lawnmowers in the back. Got some neighbors that decided to, this afternoon will be a good time to mow their lawn. But anywho, I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. And today's episode is going to be a little bit different because my planned guest had to cancel last minute. But I truly believe that this was a divine move because there's something heavy on my heart right now. And I know watching social media, there's something heavy on all of y'all's hearts. And we're going to talk all about it. And I'm talking about Tyler Perry's movie, Straw, which is now the number one movie right now in the US and the number one movie right there on Netflix. So big shout outs to Tyler Perry and the wonderful things he is doing. But first, special happy birthday to my mother, Janice Goodner. She turned the big 7-0 yesterday. And watching this movie, Straw by Tyler Perry, made me think of my mother because as she celebrated her 70th birthday yesterday, my mama was the single mama. My mom raised three girls by herself. And when watching that movie, it kind of brought up a lot of just different memories and emotions of now being a grown woman. I could only imagine what my mom was dealing with. And so, for those of you who haven't had an opportunity to check it out, go ahead and check the movie out, or you could watch, come in the conversation, and or take part in this conversation, and then go ahead and watch the playback. But let me tell you a little bit about the movie. Straw. It's a gritty psychological thriller, and it was written and directed and produced by Tyler Perry. And Taraji P. Henson is playing the role of Janiyah, and she's a single mother under extreme pressure. She wakes up to a relentless streak of hardship. She's got an eviction threat. Her daughter, Aria's worsening illness, a disrespectful boss. How many of you guys have been there before? And systematic injustice, all culminating in the loss of her paycheck and a shooting in a grocery store robbery, and ultimately a desperate bank holdup as she tries to cash her last paycheck. And as the saying goes, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Now, before we get into this conversation, first off, single mamas, come to the front. Come to the front. I want you to go ahead. This is going to be an interactive conversation. So I want you guys to go ahead, put your messages in the chat. What did you think about the movie Straw? Did you get a chance to check it out? Okay. And let's go ahead and have an interactive conversation. Hey, April. April is here in the building. I saw your post about it, April. And I know you know, honey. And so we're going to have this conversation tonight. Big shout outs to Jug Promoter. Hi, how are you? Oh, thank you. Thank you for the flowers. Hope you're having a wonderful day. And I want to shout out Black Bones Miss Kiki. So go ahead, share your straw moment and experience there in the chat. And y'all, we're going to get raw tonight. We're going to have a candid conversation tonight, all right? Because that's what we're here to do. But before we get into the conversation, I just want to say this. Malcolm X, in the words of Malcolm X, right? The most disrespected person in America is the Black woman. The most unprotected person in America is the Black woman. And a lot of Black women stood up after seeing this film with strong emotions. And I think it was a moment as to where we felt seen. In 2023, a survey stated, here's a stat. 2023 says that 40% of Black mothers were single. And so last night, that movie definitely touches a large demographic, especially in our community. And so we are going to talk about it today. Tell me what your favorite parts were, and we'll go ahead and get to it and have a candid conversation. So for me, again, I was raised by a single mom. And she would fight through the storms with a smile on her face. But as we began to have a conversation later in life, I began to really understand what a toll raising three daughters on her own really took on her. One of my favorite memories was when we had to have a stint of living with my grandparents. We were in third grade. And my grandparents, they grew up in Smoketown. Okay, my family, they grew up in Smoketown, and then my grandparents, when all the kids flew the nest, my grandparents moved on up like the Jeffersons and bought an apartment, a nice big apartment on the east end of Louisville, right there off of Brownsboro Road. And we just loved being there at Grandmom and Granddaddy's house. And I remember there was one day after school, my mom came and picked us up after school and said, we're going to be moving and we're going to be staying at Grandmom and Granddaddy's house a little bit longer than we normally would. And I didn't understand, I was like, oh, okay. It was a little sad. I wasn't going to get an opportunity to see some friends in the neighborhood anymore. But hey, anytime it was me, my mom, my twin sister, and my older sister, and my grandmama, and my grandfather, big shout outs to my Aunt Curl too, I knew it was a good time. And so we're there staying at my grandparents' house, and it actually ended up being for a couple of months. But Mom, we ended up moving out of my grandparents' house. My mom ended up getting an apartment, and the rest was history. But I remember in my adulthood asking her, I was like, Mom, why did we end up moving to Grandmom and Granddaddy's house? And she says she got evicted. And I was like, what? She said she had gotten evicted from her apartment. She was juggling jobs and doing the best she could do. And she had gotten evicted. And so that's what led to our extended stay at my grandparents' house. And I never knew that. And I respect her even more so as a woman, because I would find myself years later as a single mother myself. And I would say that it was probably one of the most loneliest parts of my life. Would you guys agree? Let me go ahead and get into some of these comments. April said, I watched it twice. I loved it. She said it was like watching my own life story. She said, my favorite part was here. Let me add you to the screen, April. My favorite part was when the bank manager said, get your hands off me, and went back in the bank. I know that's right. How many of you guys could have used an advocate when you were going through your time like that? My goodness. But my story real quick, and I'm going to be candid with you guys. And April, thank you so much. I want to bring you in though, April. So I'm going to see how I can bring you in. But April, thank you so much for being here. And I'm going to share more of your comments. But a moment, I found myself in a crossroads. Well, first off, a lot of you guys know me from doing radio. I was the midday diva for a gospel radio station here in the city, and wonderful job. Loved what I did. But one thing a lot of people probably did not know, that I was struggling. I was really struggling financially, and had a new baby, and then had an older child, and I was a single mom, and trying to make it off of meager wages. And yes, I was on food stamps. And so I could just remember, getting off work and getting that little bitty paycheck and trying to figure out, okay, how I'm going to make this thing stretch, and dealing with these silent struggles. Again, like I said, it could be one of probably the most, you feel invisible, right? You feel invisible. You feel as if, you're going through this all alone, and you don't have anyone, and you can't really tell anybody because you don't know who you can trust with your business. But it really can feel like an extremely lonely situation, being a single parent. And so I definitely, that story definitely resonated with me. Miss Arnett is here in the building. Hey, Miss Arnett. She says so many single mothers have had similar situations, maybe not on that level in one day, but definitely have had to figure some stuff out. Absolutely. They absolutely have had to figure some things out. And I'm going to show y'all a picture that really got me. This was the side of the bed, right? How many of you have had a moment like that as to where you knew that as soon as your feet hit that floor, things were going to get real? And you had to say a prayer because you knew that it's again, as soon as your feet hit the floor, that the weight of the world would be on your back and you would have to put your cape on and save everyone because that's what single mamas do, right? There's been some mixed reviews. I know a lot of people, and I think overwhelmingly a lot of Black women, we enjoy this film. And then I've seen some people, chopping it up saying, it was just another Tyler Perry thing. But I really felt like this was an opportunity for Black women to be seen and to felt heard in this film. And so just so many parts, just so glad that first off that we were represented in a way, but feeling as if our story was coming to the forefront. Let's get to some of these comments and tell me what your straw story is. Today's conversation, The Straw, is the movie by Tyler Perry, but I want to hear from you also. I'm sharing a little bit of my straw stories, but what are some of your straw stories out here today? Let's see. Miss Tiffany Grant. Hey, Tiffany. She said, I love this movie. Although she was a single mother, I found myself in her. And now me and my husband are experiencing so much at one time. And I feel so grateful for the Nicoles in my life who are there. I see myself as her. Much love to you, Miss Tiffany. And I know that I'm praying for you, sis. I saw that you posted you were going through some health challenges and trying to be a business owner. But thank God for the advocates, the angels, right? And I had one that lived next door to me for a while. So we thank God for those angels. Absolutely. All right. We see, let's see. Miss Kiki, she said, I love it. I understand that it was about single mothers. However, just the stress of being Black. I also noticed the grief. Ooh, the grief, right? The grief of no one truly understanding what you're going through. The grief of not fully feeling, heard and feeling as if it's just a slippery slope. As someone said in the movie, I got to pull this quote up, y'all. This one really, they said that it is expensive, how expensive it is to be poor. Y'all, when Janiyah, that's her name in the movie, but Taraji, when she was pulled over and she had already had all of this domino effect of all these things that were happening to her at once. And then all of a sudden she gets pulled over and they run her tags and they found out that her license was expired. No, her registration was expired and her license was suspended. Who's found themselves there before? I've been there before, as to where you have that paycheck and you got to think about, okay, I got to pay rent this month. Okay, I've got to pay a car payment. And then what little bit of insurance that I could afford at the time. I mean, so many things coming at once and we're doing it on our own. And then, it's just one of those moments as to where, okay, if I pay for this, I can't do this. And if I do this, I can't do that. But just trying to do this juggling match and all you are wanting is just, can I get a decent break, right? Can I get a break? And so, ladies, I am so happy that you all felt seen in this movie. All right, let's see. April, what else you got to say? She said, what I noticed also is that a lot of her frustrations came from within her community and people that look like her. I unfortunately, wow. We could really unpack that, right? Absolutely. The landlord who wouldn't give her extra time to pay her rent, right? Gosh. So again, this movie has seemed to strike a chord in so many. Keep sharing your stories. I absolutely love all of these stories and just giving us an outlet and an opportunity to say, hey, Tyler Perry, honey, got that one with the fan in the window. That was so good. Just so many wonderful parts. Let's see. All right, Miss Arnett, she said, I thank God for those Nicoles in my life as well. That $20 until I got paid, that ride to work when my car was down, that invitation to lunch when I wouldn't have eaten otherwise. This movie made me so grateful. Ah, Arnett, you're gonna make me cry. One thing I'll share with you guys, okay? Since we're talking, and I'm gonna tell you what. This is what I do. This is what I've done for years, to be in front of the people with a microphone and talk, but still in those moments as to where, like in church today, I was sitting back and was like, God, I cannot believe you've just brought me through so much. And to, you know, get that check and figure out, how am I going to make all this happen? On the outside, everything looked good, but a lot of people didn't know what I was going through when I would go home at night and shut that door and just be in my prayers. God, I know you called me to this, and I'm waiting until you come in and until the breakthrough happens. But God, this is heavy. This is hard. I feel lonely. And God is just a God. I tell you, if it wasn't for God, I don't know how I would have been able to get through on those days. Go ahead, continue to share your stories here with me. If you're just now tuning in, we are talking about the new movie from Tyler Perry, The Straw. I had to come on here and be loud about it because, you know, I've seen some guys commenting on there and not liking the movie. I'm like, you know what? It wasn't for you. It struck a chord in single mamas because he told a story that is not often told at all. And I'll be honest with you, how many of you guys can relate to this? That first off, growing up in the church, um, single mothers were shamed. It was almost like shame. And I remember when, you know, when I found myself pregnant out of wedlock and being a single mom, feeling shame about it. But really and truly, y'all, we are the heroes. We are the ones that stuck around, and we are the ones that took care of our responsibility. But we never got treated as such. We never got treated as such. And so to feel seen in this situation and in this production was something that was truly trailblazing. How about you? What do you think? I absolutely think so. So I have got, hold on, I got some notes of some things that I want to share with you. Yes, 2015. 2015, I co-launched an initiative called the Get Back Girls, and it was an initiative birthed from my pain, and it became my therapy because it gave me purpose when I felt like I had none. I was okay working at, I don't know if you've heard the story before, working at a gospel radio station, found myself in a bad situation, I guess you call it situationship, had my baby and knew that I would have to raise her on my own. And I tell you, it was probably one of the darkest moments of my life, but one of the brightest moments of my life. And God connected me with these 4 other women. And I promise you, I don't know where I would be had I not launched that initiative, had we not launched that initiative together and took the very thing, which was being a single mom and fighting past this situation. But it ended up being my stage, made it a stage. I made my message. And me and these girls forged this wonderful relationship. And we used our synergy to, you know, to love on one another and encourage one another to come on, we got to get back on track. We can be who all God called us to be. But that came when we came together. And that goes back to April's point where she talked about a lot of the hindrances that befuddled Miss Taraji in this film came from those in her community. But just imagine how the story could have played out differently had she had an advocate like she did in that bank manager near the middle of the movie. How could her life have been differently had she had some help? And that's all she was crying for, was help. And there was a moment there in the movie, it's going to get me teary-eyed when she said, I don't have nobody else. She said, I've been forced to do this by myself. And I know what that feels like. I know what that feels like. And I thank God that, you know, and I always say, as we walk through the valley of shadow and death, that was part of my story. And God has definitely turned my life around and had my wonderful husband, and life is really good. But I went through that. And a lot of times we go through things, not just for yourself, but our story to go to serve, to encourage and inspire and uplift and give hope to other people that might be going through something. Let's see. April, she says, I wasn't raised in church, but I was a single mom in my church. And we all spoke about feeling alienated. Yeah. And I don't understand that, because that should be the place where you go for refuge, because, yeah, that should be where you should be able to seek refuge. But I think this movie, if nothing else, it talked about we should look at ourselves as a community. And my goal, my dream, you guys, is to one day create an organization for single moms so we can come together and support one another and love on one another and create the village in which all of us needed. Again, Janiyah there in that movie, all she needed was a little help. And it seems as if she found someone that wanted to step in and help her, but it was already too late at that moment. Share your straws stories. I'm going to be on here only for a couple more minutes. How you doing? Thanks so much for tuning in to Candid Conversations with Miss Krystal podcast. I had a guest initially planned, but the guest had to cancel. And I was going to be like, oh, okay, I'll catch up next week. But no, God put it on my heart to talk about this, to share this, to talk about this movie, because I really, truly believe that my ministry is to minister to women and single mothers in particular, man. And as I always said, it's probably one of the hardest hoods I've ever had to go through in my life. And I remember going to bed and feeling emptied out and going to bed and saying, God, I don't know how I can do this again. But every day I would wake up with new mercies. Every day I would wake up fulfilled. And I would wake up looking like this picture here of Taraji Henson on the edge of the bed, knowing that as soon as my feet hit the floor, the weight of the world would be on my back. But every day I got up from a bad night before and I was able to go on just a little longer. How many of you this resonated? That scene when it just seemed like every single thing was going wrong. By this moment, she had her daughter's school was calling her because she had, a negative balance on her lunch account. How many of you guys can relate to that situation before? And then getting to work and getting a call from the kids' school and you being the only person on that emergency contact list, knowing that you didn't have any more time to take off. Gosh, that moment right there, that definitely got me there too. That moment you just want to scream and you're like, God, where are you at? Lord, where is my help? But if nothing else, this movie, although, Taraji's ending wasn't the best, but this movie basically shows it told our story. It told our story. And my hope and desire and prayer is that if you've come through it, reach out to someone that you know that is a young single mother, offer your services, offer to be a resource. Say, hey, I can watch your child for a little bit, or hey, do the kids need anything? Even offering a meal, becoming a community that we know that we truly need. Hey, Erica's here in the building. Hey, Miss Erica. She says, as a single mom of 4, I'm grateful to God for walking right beside me. Girl, I know. Tell me about some of your hardest moments there in the chat. We are sharing our straw stories today. And let's see. We have got Black Bones Kiki. Hey, Miss Kiki. She said, my last straw was leaving a bad relationship, leaving with the clothes on my back, not knowing where I was going, and stepping out on faith. Wow. Miss Kiki, I'm interested to learn more about that story. What ended up happening and what is your glory behind your story? Because I know you definitely have one. I got Miss Tiffany again here, and she says, I also think it looks at mental health. Absolutely, absolutely. As the movie ends, we understand that her mental health was fractured because of the loss of a child and all she had to endure as a single mother. And I hope more people will get mental health because of this. Miss Tiffany, you definitely hit on something. You absolutely hit on something, especially those of us that were raised up in the church, right? We were, listen, I didn't hear anything about going to therapy in my community growing up. It was always, we're going to pray about it and we're going to pray for you about it, but no one ever encouraged going to therapy. And I almost wonder, if my mom could have benefited from that, because I truly believe, and I listen, don't take it from me. I said I could coin a phrase called single mama trauma. My mom, at the age of 54, she dealt with high blood pressure, hypertension, and she actually had a brain aneurysm at the age of 54. And a piece of me almost wondered, was her illness due to years of stress? Years of stress. If you're just now joining us, thanks so much for tuning in. This is our conversation right here on Candid Conversations with Miss Krystal podcast. We're talking all about Tyler Perry's movie Straw. And if you haven't checked it out, check it out. The number one movie on Netflix. And actually, I think, yeah, might be the number one movie right now, period. But such a wonderful movie that just talks and shares the dirty tales, the raw tales of being a single mama. And what do y'all think about Sherry Shepherd? I think Sherry Shepherd did an amazing job in this film. I saw someone post about how they didn't care for Sherry's acting. I thought they did an amazing job. Taraji Henson did her thing. Big shout outs to Tyler Perry for continuing to create work for Black Hollywood, right? And did you guys check out Sinbad? How good was it to see Sinbad, who had had some health challenges? And I remember a couple of the Black comedians came together to raise money for him to help him following his stroke. I believe he had a stroke. And to see him there in Tyler Perry's movie, that was wonderful. Teyana Taylor, I thought she did a really great job too as the officer there in the film. And so a lot of familiar faces, a lot of acting debuts, but at the heart, just a raw story, a story about single motherhood. And oh, look at that. She said, Sherry is my new hero. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And April said, Sherry was the definition of protect Black women. Um, absolutely. She decided to stand with her to the end, and she was true to her word. And really what gets me is, first off, as a single mom back then, you don't want to ask anybody for anything because you feel as if, you don't want anything dangled over your head, right? Or you get to the point to where you don't want to ask for help because you've probably used up your collateral, right? You've probably already asked this person to babysit your child or ask for a little help here and there. You don't want to, wear out your welcome, or you don't want to go ahead and burn your resources. And then also sometimes you don't ask because you're afraid of rejection. And so for her to find help in Sherry, and for Sherry to stand up for her in that moment, and for her to probably have not ever felt like she had someone, that made me cry. Because again, how could the situation have been different had she had someone in her life like that the whole time? Yeah, I agree. She did an amazing job. An amazing job. You guys I'm telling y'all, I could talk about this movie forever. I've got a story I want to share with y'all, but I'm still praying about it, y'all. When I tell you this movie paralleled my life in more ways than one, I promise you it really, really did. I might have to keep it for the book. I'm gonna do, okay. but this story just really, really, really touched home. And so when people who have seen me and who have followed my career and have seen my life, just know that it wasn't without any trials. Just know that I have been through the ringer and back, but we serve a God that is faithful. And just don't give up, right? Just don't give up. Y'all, well, I am about to wrap up here in a bit. Any more comments? Any more comments? Any more stories that you all want to share? But I encourage you, if you have not had an opportunity to watch this movie, go ahead and do it. And I want to shout out, first off, I shouted out my mom, who is a powerful single mom who raised her three daughters by herself, no child support. Also, want to shout out my mother-in-law, Christine Spratt, honey. My husband just he could speak for hours about how this powerful woman raised her four children with God and knowing how to make a way out of no way and making a dollar out of 15 cents. Just a powerful woman from the country. Was what, Fulton, Kentucky, but she was a good mom and just a powerful woman. And my friends, I was blessed to be able to have a village of women who knew what it felt like. My girl, I'm gonna shout them out, Moya and Makara, and my cousin Ashi. She's the one that was really telling us about the movie yesterday at my mom's party, and she said that this movie struck something in her, like a lot of you also have said as well. And my girl, Miss Monica, Dr. Monica Hunter, and she was one of the ladies of the Get Back Girls. And so watch this movie. Let's pray for single mamas, but definitely this story, it shows and it highlights that there is a broken system, and that again, how as Black women we often feel we don't feel seen and we don't feel supported, and we feel as if we have to be Superman all the time. But who do the strong people go to? Hmm? What if we created a network of support, so stories like Janaya doesn't have to exist, right? Yeah. You guys, I have so enjoyed spending this time with you. Let me make sure I've done said everything, because I know what's going exactly going to happen. I end this live and then I'll be like, oh my goodness, I wanted to talk about that. But I believe, look, my producers over here, did I hit on everything? Did I hit on everything? Okay. Okay. You know, we might do a part two to this. And there is a story, though, you all, that I do want to tell you that happened more than a decade ago. I guess I'll do that in part two. April, I'll bring you on. Well, let's do a part two conversation about the straw, and I'll let you share your story. And I'm gonna share. I'm gonna share that story. I'm gonna tell that story because what's the Bible say? That we have overcome by the power of our testimonies, and where we are speaking on is not where we are still at. And God has truly done a wonderful thing. And he definitely gets the glory in my story. If you guys only knew, there were times where, I love to host events now, but there were times where I would have to host events just to get by. I would have to host events just for that extra money. I remember there was it was like in the fall or something. I mean, years ago, though, a few years ago. And the seasons were about to change, and it was time to get the girls some coats. And I just remember hustling events, so, doing this event here and that event there to get the coats for my daughters and get Christmas and things like that. And so I definitely know what it feels like. I know what that feels like. But honey, come on, Miss Beverly, I got in with it, but by God's grace. And I thought about when I saw you say God's grace, it made me think God's grace is sufficient. God's grace is sufficient. All right, we are going to do a part two. I'm glad that I came on here, and I'm glad that I had an opportunity to spend this moment with you. Yes, you out there. You strong sister, you woman out there who knew you had to try to make a way out of no way. The person that cried those silent tears, and there were moments to where it was only between you and God, and you didn't know how you was going to get through. You didn't know where the next meal was going to come from. You didn't know how rent was going to get paid, but you kept on keeping on. Because as I always say, one of my favorite sayings is that resilience is a woman's secret weapon. So let's continue to love on one another. Let's continue to encourage one another. And we're going to do part two of this conversation. But All right, guys, I'm going to let you guys get on back to the rest of your Sunday. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope this time together was healing. Oh, Ashi, hey, hey. Look, people coming. Hey, Miss Ashi. She's the one that told me about this film. Y'all, my throat is getting dry. Usually I take a sip when somebody else is talking. Just me today. But love you, Ashi. And so when we do our part two, Ashi, you are going to be in the conversation as well. I called her, but she was visiting her baby boy that is going to be playing for Purdue University and getting him all settled in there in college. But this movie was definitely it touched home for her. My sister, Miss Kristen, who was part of my village. I can't tell you, sis, and I just want to thank you so much for the many times that you stepped up to give me a break or you stepped in to help with the girls in any way. And she's definitely just been just a wonderful resource for me and my daughters. And I want to shout out my husband, my amazing husband, my good thing that God brought into my life. And I always say that he is just the manifestation of God's love for me, because I knew that, as that song, Kristen, I'm thinking about that song you sung, Turn It Around for Me, all right? Sitting there in the gospel station, and these songs would minister to me when I was going through. And the song says, it won't always be like this, because God is perfecting that which concerning me. Sooner or later, it's going to work in my favor. It's turning around for me. And so those were songs like that. And just knowing that what I'm going through, my present circumstance, is not going to be forever. And I just had to keep pushing through. And I just thank God for everybody that he put in my life. Y'all, let's make a point to love on one another. Let's support one another. We are strong. We are so strong and resilient. And I've enjoyed this time with each and every one of you. Say, we're going to do part two of this conversation, The Straw. So if you haven't checked it out, go ahead, check it out on Netflix now. And do me a favor, share this broadcast. Have a wonderful rest of your Sunday. And let's do this again, friends. Let's keep it candid. Bye.